Right, let's put this full screen, and we are live, I believe. So yes, thank you very much to anyone who will no doubt join me. Obviously, I do need to probably stop scheduling these at the very last minute, but I figured, go on then. We'll have a little bit of a therapy session talking about West Ham versus Sunderland, or West Ham 3, Sunderland 1 at the weekend. I've tried to avoid watching content around the game, to be totally honest. When I rephrase that, when I say content, I usually quite mean highlights around the game. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a good performance, was it? So, we'll see. Oh, I don't even know why I got that comment up. That was a sample comment on there. So, yeah, we'll see. But here we go. So we have Paul Spector, who's just literally joined the chat, going, "All right, Michael. Yeah, I'm not doing too badly. It's a wet, miserable. Well, I wouldn't say it was wet. It was a miserable sort of January Monday morning in the northeast, but I am not doing too badly. I hope you are doing all right, my friend, and hopefully we're kind of getting over Saturday's result. I think the first thing to say about Saturday is West Ham deserved it. I think the scoreline was probably. I think them being 3-0 up at half time was maybe a little bit harsh on Sunderland, only because I think West Ham deserved to be 2 goals ahead, but I'm not so sure about 3. I don't think they played us off the park by that amount, but they certainly were the team that deserved to be leading at half time, and particularly by a couple of goals. And we've got to say, I think if just to get West Ham praise out of the way, I think that Bowen and Somerville were both excellent against us. They were both absolutely fantastic. I felt like I can't remember Mukiele and Reynildo getting bullied like that and getting dominated. And I was noticing it during the game when watching it, and I was just going, "Oh my god, this is absolutely awful." So yeah, it wasn't a good performance whatsoever. And I think them two in particular did struggle. So it's no wonder Reynildo got brought off at half time. And by the way, as you guys know, I do criticise referees, and I'm going to be fair here. I think Phil Smith said it on the whistle video. So I would say that I actually think we've got to be fair here. We were lucky not to go down to 10 men. Reynildo should have got a second yellow card towards the end of the first half. So I do think we are. I think it's got to be fair that I've criticised referees when a decision goes in our favour. And I think, to be honest, I think the only reason the ref didn't give his second yellow was probably because the game was already gone and we were 3-0 down. Which, if that's the case, that's quite poor. I appreciate him not sending Ronaldo off, but it's not a professional job by the referee. So, the referee wasn't at fault. I thought the referee was very quick to give a lot of little niggly things to West Ham, but at the end of the day, he wasn't the reason we lost 3-1. We lost 3-1 because the setup was wrong and our players weren't good enough on the day. So there you have it. So for anyone who might even try to think that, I don't blame the referee when we get beat. I tend to mention them more when we get a good result as opposed to a bad one. So when I mention it there, it can't be bitterness when we lose. But there we go. So let's get on to these comments. Terrible game. Hume's worst first half performance he's ever had for us. It's certainly right up there. And I think that I like Trey Hume, and I think he has made the step up, particularly when he's had to play it right back. But I do think he's just not a midfielder. And I think that I'd like to hope that's the last time we try and see that experiment. I still don't understand why Gertruda wasn't in from the start. I really don't get it. I think it was a game that would have suited him, given the fact that Xhaka was out for the game. And I think he's just the closest. I think it was a comment on Phil's on the whistle video. They said, or a question rather, that Gertruda is the closest to replicating what Xhaka can actually bring to the team. So yeah, I think it was more. It baffled me why Gertruda didn't play. And I said that before the game, by the way. It's not hindsight. I actually said when I saw the lineup, I was like, "Why is Gertruda not playing?" It's a little bit strange that it is a bit bizarre. And actually, I think it was probably that Real Bruce was too attacking. But there you go. Pretty much at the point where it sacrificed the solidity in the midfield. Hello, John. Hope you're doing all right. Hello, Richard. How you are, my friend? Hello, all. What a terrible performance. Yep, I completely agree. I mean, we were better second half, but I think a lot of that is down to the fact that West Ham took their foot off the gas. Brett says, can't forgive the Bruce wait until half time to change things up. Should have changed before the penalty. I can certainly see why you feel that. John says, I'd love to be in for Somerville if West Ham go down in the summer. Well, we'll wait and see. A couple of games ago, it looked very likely that West Ham were going to go down. It's amazing how quickly things can change. Obviously, if Leeds win tonight at Everton, then Leeds go back 8 points clear again. So it's certainly going to heat up the relegation battle, that's for sure. Kieran Gill, why didn't we play Gertruda? Your guess is as good as my mate, and I really wish really wish we had played him. But there you go. Go on Twitter says Hume was given too much responsibility while he was playing out of position. Yeah, I think that's all fair enough. I think that's a fair point. Let's see. Paul's back there. Can't believe we were the only unbeaten team at home in the Prem. It's all down to the fans. Yeah, well, I think that Well, yeah, we'll wait and see what happens after Burnley. But yes, I did want Arsenal to lose yesterday purely for that reason. So we can now say that we are the last team left having an unbeaten home record. If I'm honest, I'd be very surprised if we last the full season unbeaten at home. I'd love it, don't get me wrong, but it's very, very hard to do. So I think if we can, let's last as long as possible. But we will lose at home at some point. I think we all know that. But yeah, I mean, if we don't, fantastic. It'd be funny if we finished like 14th or something, but we ended unbeaten at home, but every sudden game was a draw. Let's see. Let's see. What else is there? Well, Brett and Richard are certainly having a bit of a debate in the chat about forgiving Lebris for waiting until half time to sort of change things up. I think I could understand the frustration of having him wait until half time. I think maybe after the penalty might have been a good shout, but I just think I think Gertruda should. I think that Gertruda should have started from the off for me. And John Pye, I agree. Gertruda should have started. I'll be pissed with the Regis if Gertruda doesn't start on Saturday. Well, if he wants to start on Saturday, considering we don't play Burnley till Monday, mate, then unless we do reverse psychology, make Burnley think it's Saturday we're playing and we get 3 points by default. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Kieran says, "Do you think we can play 2 up top?" I don't know. The problem is if you're going to play 2 up top, then the only way I can see that happening is if you played a 4-3-1-2 or something, and even then that sounds a ludicrous formation, doesn't it? Because you're effectively relying on just one creative player in front of a midfield 3, because I think we get overran when we don't play a midfield 3. And I think against Burnley next Monday, I would imagine we will play a midfield 3, and I am begging that he gets the. And to be fair to Lebris, Lebris has generally done a very good job, but he does deserve criticism for the lineup on Saturday. And obviously it's all hindsight, because at the time I think a lot of people would have been quite happy that it was reasonably attacking. But it just goes to prove that everyone can make mistakes. So I don't know. But to answer your question, can we play 2 up top? It depends on the balance of the formation, I think. Paul Spector, we played Villa, City, Arsenal. Who's going to stop us? Potentially Liverpool, Man United, Tottenham. Well, maybe not Tottenham so much, but Chelsea, sorry. They're still really good. And even Fulham and Brighton, for example, are no slouches. And, Burnley's not going to be an easy game either. Although I do think Burnley, we need to be winning. He is, but he's paid to make decisions and got them badly wrong and waited too long. That is true, Brett, but as Richard has said, where is it here? He's got plenty right, though. I agree. Brees has got plenty right this season. I don't think that can be lost just because of Saturday. But equally, he does deserve criticism for Saturday. Both can be true at the same time. Let's have a look. John Mundell has to go out on loan, nowhere near standard, but will be in a few years. He lacks confidence, always plays safe. Yeah, I think one of the things that frustrates me with wingers is when they take the man on and then lose the ball. That really, really grinds my gears, because then it means you've sort of lost the ball and you're now under pressure. And I do get it. I know people like wingers to take people on. But I just think one of the things, especially when it's a case of us giving the ball away stupidly, and more times than not, when teams do something against us, it's because we've been sloppy in possession. It's not because teams have carved us open. I think it's because we've been generally terrible with ball retention. But yeah, I think with Mundell it's an interesting one, because because Phil Smith said this as well, that it's far too early to judge whether Mundell's going to be good enough for the Premier League, and I do get that. I have a gut feeling he probably won't be, but if I'm being fair to Mundell, he's barely played last season. We actually forget how much of last season he was out injured, and he's only just come into the fold recently, probably the start of the AFCON period, Mundell. So, but I do think there is something there. But I think but the longer we're in the Premier League, I think the less likely it is he's going to make it here with us, because we're going to get more money, and I think we'll want to recruit better in those positions. So, to be fair, Richard, we've had some decent draws over Christmas, but remember we dropped off in the Championship. I would say, Brett, though, that was down to the fact that we knew we had playoffs and we couldn't get top 2. So I think that bit of context we do need to remember around the same time as well. And another thing as well, you've got to remember, we were up against 3 parachute payment teams who all had much better resources than us. I think a lot of people do forget that. Richard Waite says we had a spill. I can't even talk. We had a small squad in the Championship. There are reasons behind it. That's what I've said before, that I think, I know this season the parachute payment clubs have been, well, apart from Ipswich, have generally been cack. But I do think we've got to remember, in a general rule of thumb, the parachute payment teams are often the ones at the top of the division. And I think it's easy to lose the context of that now. But I think it would have been a massive ask for Sunderland to get into the top two last season when you had Leeds with what I thought was comfortably the best squad in the division. You had Burnley, who had comfortably the best defence in the division, and both teams got 100 points. I mean, what are you expecting to do there? And then I do agree that I do think Sheffield United weren't better than us, even though the points gap does suggest they were. But I've stand by. I watched a lot of Sheffield United, and their performances were not good. And I feel like a lot of it was down to the fact that they were still fighting for top two until the last couple of games, and Sunderland just kind of really dropped off because we knew we had playoffs. So I think I do get the point that Brett's making, because you could say that maybe we did drop off in the Championship, but at the same time, I think you need to look at the context behind it. But as for this season, and we've got to remember, this season, as much as you can obviously criticize Saturday, and I don't want to get away from that, we still need to, when we play poorly, we have a right to criticize the performance, but we equally have to remember that we've still had a very good season so far, and that the start of the season, 17th, everybody would have taken. And obviously, yes, expectations do change, and that's fair enough, but we've just got to remember the bigger picture, I think. I'm not talking about the end of the season in the Championship. We dropped off around this jacket at Christmas, same time as last season. And if you listen back, Brent, I did actually say that it's quite hard to actually compete with parachute payment clubs in a general rule of thumb when you're a non-parachute payment club. Wolfsbeck says, still want a right winger. That's all we need. Wouldn't mind a midfielder as well with Xhaka out. No, I wouldn't either. I think Xhaka is someone who... I think Xhaka, personally, is sort of someone who obviously has a big impact on the side. And I think it's quite funny because I saw a couple of Leeds fans obsessively going on about, Sunderland without Xhaka are basically Wolves. Shock, gasp, horror. You take someone's best player out and they're suddenly not as good. What a prospect. Look at Newcastle, for example, yesterday without Bruno. I don't think Newcastle played badly yesterday in some patches, but Bruno just drives them up the pitch better from midfield. So when they didn't have him there, I think they definitely felt it. Although Aston Villa did play quite well, I think. But yes, I think when it comes to Saturday, I think the lineup just wasn't right. It looked quite attacking, and I do agree with that, but it didn't look balanced to me. I think that's the best way to put it. It looked like we had Siddiqui. And Lafay as a midfield two with two wingers. That didn't strike me as very balanced. And although Lafay's been great in defensive work, it didn't strike me as just the right combination. I felt like we needed a third body in there. And I think if we had Xhaka, Siddiqui and Gertruda, I think then who knows? I mean, it's hindsight. It's easy to say it now. But I do think it's going to be but I do think it would have been fascinating to see if Gertruda did start. And I would like to see Gertruda start against Burnley. I just want the balance, the best balance. If we get the balance right, I think if we're on it, we should have enough, hopefully, to beat Burnley at home. Yeah, but there were 24 teams in the Championship, not just Burnley, Leeds and Sheffield United. Yes, but how many of them were competing for automatic promotion, though? That's, I get the point you're making, but you have to understand that if you're coming, you can say a drop-off, but at the end of the day, we comfortably finished fourth, the best of the non-parachute payment teams, and I think you're overlooking the fact that the teams at the top have a lot of resources. Look at us with Tom Cannon and Sheffield United. Sheffield United got him because of parachute payments. Look at us with Marcus Edwards at Burnley. He went there because Burnley could offer a better package than us, even if it was a loan deal, because parachute payments. It makes a difference. So yeah, like I said, that's fine. By the way, as long as you're respectful about it, we can agree to disagree on that. Richard, you guys always yeah. I suppose this is what I mean. I've always said before that I think optimism sometimes can be considered delusional. I think sometimes pessimism can be considered that as well. I think sometimes you've just got to get pessimism and realism. Sometimes are the same thing, but they're not always the same thing. Diarra and Talby have to come in on Monday, offer a lot more to the squad than Mundle and Mayenda, with Lafay on the left and Talby on the right. I don't think Talby's as effective on the right, and it's a weird one. I do get the impression, I would actually like to see Adingra on the right, personally. I still think that Adingra's someone who I think can offer something, and I do think that if you played Adingra on the right, I think, okay, yeah, granted it was kind of the second or third, fourth phase from a set piece for a corner, but I do feel like when it comes to Everton, when it comes to the West Ham game at the start of the season, his cross for Ballard came in on the right, off the right rather, and I think that obviously Adingra scored a goal against Leeds off the left, which is a fair argument, but I think maybe if you had Lafay on the left and Dingra on the right, with Diarra, Gertruda, and Siddiqui in there, I'd like to hope on paper that looks a balanced side, but I'm not paid to make these decisions, and I suppose that's probably a good thing, to be totally honest. Knowing me, knowing you, I still love that name. On a positive, I was impressed with Diarra when he came on, albeit West Ham took their foot off the gas, but he still looks sharp. Our goal was very decent too, onwards and upwards. A good thing is I like the fact that Broby's getting another goal. Is it Broby or Brobby at this point? I don't know, but I'm quite impressed by the fact that he is getting. He is. I think that's his 5th goal of the season or something like that. So I'm actually on. Hang on, is it his 6th? No, I think it's his 5th actually. Sorry, 5th goal of the season. So I think I did say at the course of the season I did think Brobby would become our starting number 1 striker, and I do think that when you spent 20 million quid on him, okay, granted in Premier League terms that's not very much. I do think it's I think it's good to see that we're actually. I've said before, I'd like to see the strikers start to get actual service to them because I don't feel we do that enough. But I do appreciate the fact that attacking quality in the Premier League costs a lot of money. And this is why I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't sign a winger this week, because I think we might be wanting to wait till the summer. Let's see. Not trying to be awkward, just disappointed. We have a chance to have a great season. Might not get this chance again for a while. First time I felt like this season. I think we have had a great... Well, okay. We've had a very good season, put it that way. I get what you mean. There is a chance for a great season. If you're talking about a chance of Europe, then fair enough. But I think also another factor we have to remember is I don't think West Ham's squad's as bad as what their position suggests it is. I mean, just looking at the top of it, obviously Paqueta looks like he could be off to Flamengo or whatever the club's name is. I just feel like if you're looking at it, you've got Somerville, you've got Bowen, you've got Fernandez, you've got Soucek, you've got Wan-Bissaka. Like, that's just a handful of players, but you get my point. Like, West Ham's squad for me should not be 18th in the Premier League, but nevertheless it is because it's been performing really poorly. So I understand. Look, it was an opportunity, and I actually thought for the first 5-10 minutes, it doesn't matter now, obviously, but the first 5-10 minutes, I thought Sunderland actually looked pretty good. But I think once the first one went in, West Ham's tails were up. And where I will give Brett this is that I do feel in the first half, West Ham wanted it more than Sunderland, and I think that's quite poor from Sunderland. Not saying Sunderland didn't try, but you could definitely tell the game meant more to West Ham. And I get it; they're in a situation where they needed to win, so for them they probably were going to have that extra motivation. But I think when you're a Sunderland fan and you've paid all that money to go down there, you want to see more than that, don't you? But to be fair to the lads, that's one of the few times this season we have been able to say that. Sorry, few times this season we've said that. So in general, we have done really well. Paul Spector says, we don't have a right winger, don't want to put Hume there. We do, he's just out injured. Traore. But I get your point. But I get it, but we are having a good season. Absolutely. I get what you mean. If Brett means about top half minimum looking at Europe, then yeah, I can see why it would be disappointing to lose to West Ham. But I think it just puts more emphasis that we do need to beat Burnley, I think, as long as we're on it. And that's another thing. Burnley's not going to be a given either, but there's no easy games in the Premier League. There's absolutely none. There's no God-given right to win any game. But, obviously if we're wanting to get a top half finish, if we're looking at that as a minimum, then I'll get the impression next Monday really does need to be a Sunderland win. And Kieran, yes, I agree with you. We should try and get Harry Wilson. Now, particularly if Oscar Bob goes to Fulham, I'm a little disappointed Sunderland don't seem to be asking the question about Harry Wilson. Because I think Harry Wilson, with the fact he's under contract till the end of the season, I think, and apparently he's stalling off signing one until Marco Silva's future gets announced. But I would look at it a way of going, if we could bid anything up to £10 million, then I think there should be a realistic chance that deal happens. Will Harry Wilson want to come up here? I don't know. We'll have to see. It could be that, or it could be his wage demands might be too much. We don't know. We also don't want to get into a situation where, Harry Wilson could be comfortably our best paid earner, and then suddenly everyone else wants to start getting a wage increase. I don't know. Those are things we probably do have to can bear in mind. But for me, Harry Wilson is somebody that I would like us to try and target, and I would like us to try and go for. And with the greatest respect to Fulham, but Fulham to Sunderland should be considered a step up in my opinion. But I'm just talking about the size of the club. At the same time, Fulham are established. We're not yet. So, it works both ways. Give Fulham 20 million for Wilson and get deal done even with 6 months. I think 20 million's too much, mate. I wouldn't be going above anywhere 10. Only because he's out of contract at the end of the season. And I don't think the regime will do that either. But to be honest, do I think Gasolfi and all that will target Harry Wilson and go for him this window? I don't. I disagree. I disagree with that opinion if that's what they think, because I think he's a quality player, and I think he's somebody I would really much like us to be looking at. But I'd be quite surprised if we did go for Harry Wilson this window. But I would love more than ever to be proven wrong. I think winger maybe another centre midfielder now, but winger, we've said all along, I think winger is someone that is a position we need strengthening in. And I think, but I've always been quite quick to emphasise how much attacking players cost. So I do feel like, and that's what I mean for this season, really, considering we had a massive amount to play with PSR, as I've said before, it isn't a limitless pot, unfortunately. As much as we'd love it to be, it's not. So we had to kind of get the balance right of getting the midfield and defence sorted this season to give us enough points in games to keep us up, because I promise you, next season I think we'll be better for it. And I think that we will have a lot of wiggle room to go out and really attack the attacking market, rather, and able to get maybe another striker, at least one winger, I'd like to think, because hopefully by this summer, the midfield and defence, providing we don't lose anyone, and goalkeeper, is sorted. And therefore, I think we should have bigger scope to address the attacking end of the pitch, because there's no doubt that's the area we do need to improve the most. I think we're something like the second or third lowest goal scorers in the league, but obviously the general defensive performance, bar the last few weeks, the general defensive performance is what's probably kept us well away from trouble so far. The boost can make me happy again if he maintains our unbeaten home record against Burnley, as we're now the only unbeaten home team. Brett, to be fair, I do actually agree with you there, mate. And agree with Richard. Yes, we do. We need to be beaten Burnley. Not to mention, I was at Turf Moor, and I feel like Burnley did deserve to win, but it did sting me a little bit losing 2-0 to Burnley, because not because Burnley are terrible, they've earned the right to be in the Premier League, but because at the time I felt that's a game we need to be picking up results in if we want to stay up. Now, as it transpires, probably not, but yes, I do think it's I think next Monday is a game we do need to win. But I like was it John's comment when you're talking about playing Gertrude next Saturday? Well, I'll tell you what, John, can you quickly deceive Burnley and make them think we're playing on Saturday? And then maybe, where was it? Hang on, give us a minute. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it was this comment. So yeah, Gertrude should have started. I'll be pissed with the breach if Gertrude doesn't start on Saturday. I'll tell you what, John. How about if you convince Burnley we're playing on Saturday, and then it's like a FIFA forfeit and we win 3-0? How's that? That'd be lovely, wouldn't it? But yes, get back into what Richard, and of course I suspect that everyone agrees. I think we do need to be winning next Monday night. Don't get us wrong. Obviously I know about the unbeaten home record, but we know what. But yeah, I think at some point this will come to an end. But I'm just hoping it's someone decent that beats us if we're going to lose it. But I think next week, obviously we know for certain Xhaka will be out, and that will be a blow. But I do think if you get the setup right, there's no reason for me why we can't be beating Burnley. As long as we're on it, we have to remember there's no God-given right to win any game, and I'm sure people in the chat and people watching will agree with that. No one has said there's a God-given right, of course. But for me, where's that going off? Hold on, sorry. There we go. The speakers were going off a little bit there, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm really hoping that this week we can get something done, whether it's a midfielder, whether it's a right winger, but. Like I said, a couple of weeks ago, even after the Everton game, even at the start of the window, I said I wouldn't be shocked if we didn't address the attacking output this window as much, because you don't get as much value in the January window. But it means with next season, it just means that next season, with another year of Premier League money, with the fact that the PSR changes to squad cost ratio, so SCR, it changes to that, where you can spend up to 85% of your turnover on the first team costs. I think then that's when I think you'll see us really go after the attacking output. And maybe not Fernan Lopez. I know that doesn't go away from Barcelona to Sunderland, but I think that's sensationalist paper talk. There's not a chance that happens. But hey, if it happens this week, everyone watching, feel free to clip that and post it on social media. I give you permission to make me look like a mug. We should also go for James McAtee. Hasn't really played for Forest. Interesting shout. John Paul, Burnley are terrible, down there for a reason. I was thinking maybe we have an obligation. He plays an X amount of games. If you mean Gertrude, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, actually. Burnley, right, okay. Yes, I do agree. Burnley, I think, are very likely to go down. But you've got to remember, I think they've drawn their last few games. They've got a little bit of an unbeaten run, albeit it's probably not enough to keep them up. But I think it was Tottenham. Well, okay, Tottenham are pretty cack at the minute. Tottenham didn't beat them. Liverpool at Anfield didn't beat them. Man United didn't beat them. So I think it's not going to be a straightforward walk in the park. But I know you're not saying it will be. It won't be a straightforward game. But I think at home you'd like to hope we'll have enough. But you never know. Stranger things have happened. And Richard agrees. Got to be John or something similar. This will be about Gertrude. Fair enough. So let's ask people this, right, in the chat. If we had to address one area in the next 7 days, just one area, where would you pick? for the rest. If I had to pick now, depends how long Jack is out for, I'd maybe go centre midfield. Maybe. The only reason I say that is because I think what we've got out wide will suffice for the rest of this season, and I think it will. I think it'll be good enough to help get us to the summer, and then once we get to the summer, then I would hope that we're going to really go for wingers and maybe another striker. But I've said before, I'd like to see what Robbie can do with real top class service to him. And actually, to be fair, Mukiele provided a great ball in for Robbie at the weekend for him to score. What West Ham's defence was doing, I don't know, but yeah, because he just basically was a free header on goal, really, wasn't it? So. But nevertheless, I'd like to see Robbie get his confidence up, and hopefully, maybe if he ends the season on double figures, maybe I don't know how much of a big ask that is. I think he's got to get another 5 goals in something like 15 games. Yeah, and yeah. If you average 1 in 3, it's not like a huge amount, is it? Paul Speck, he's played 9 games with Gertruda, so maybe he has a 10-game obligation to buy type thing. It wouldn't surprise me that. But surely, if anything, wouldn't this be the window to exercise the permanent option for Gertruda? And then you don't have to think about that for the summer. Because when Gertruda's playing in general, I've been quite impressed with him. I think he's looked really, really good. So, I don't know. I think is it what's the fee? Is it 18 million quid or 20 million quid that the permanently exercised permanent fee is? Sorry, I'm just stroking the dogs. I've got both dogs on my bed at the minute, so I'll have to end up leaving the chat for. I'll have to end up quickly going off cam for a second if I have to let them out. But yeah. I think, as for Gertruda, yeah, I think Gertruda makes sense for you. I really want us to get Guendouzi from Lazio, but of course I think he's gone to Fenerbahce now, hasn't he? Let's see. Kieran Gale, hang on a minute. I think the dogs are about to go off it because I can hear a car outside. Okay, maybe not quite. Sorry, guys, this is all over the place, this stream, isn't it? Do you think Isidore will leave? Now, that is a good question, and I want to know what people think about Isidore. I'll quickly respond to that in a minute, Kieran. Paul Spector says he's class, very versatile. 18 million would be a steal. I agree. And I agree, Richard. I'd sign him now. Absolutely. Right, to answer Kieran's question, I want to know, what do people think about Isidore in the chat? So, for those who don't know, basically Isidore has reportedly had interest from Everton and Nottingham Forest. Now, I don't know what the fee being branded about is. I suspect it's something around the region of 20 million quid, maybe 25, probably including add-ons, to be honest. But if that's the case, and this might sound very, very harsh, but I would seriously consider selling Isidore for that fee. I love Isidore. I think he's someone who obviously gets what the club is. He has scored some vital goals for us, both in the journey of getting us up to the Premier League and helping us get to where we are now in the Premier League. But I suspect that if we're going to sell him for that fee, we could get somebody better for that money from abroad. I'm not saying this window necessarily, but I think you could get somebody a bit better. Because I wouldn't be against the idea of the rest of the season. If Isidore did go, I don't think he will, by the way. As I think Richard said the same thing. I don't know if you're talking about Isidore here, mate, or Gertruda, but if you're talking about Isidore, then I agree with you. I don't think Isidore will go, and I would like Isidore to stay. But I reckon that if we got an offer of, say, 20 million quid for him, or 20, 25 million, you sell him now, because I think this is when his stock's going to be the highest. And I think if you did that, then I wouldn't be against loaning Mark Gahey as the third option for the rest of the season if you can't get anyone else, just so you've got another option there. And if that money then in the summer, or preferably now, but in the summer, goes towards a quality right winger or a quality left winger, and I'm talking like a level much closer to Antoine Semenyo, but I think it's going to be someone from abroad who hasn't got Prem experience, and that's where I think you could maybe do a bit of forward planning there. So I don't know how it would quite pan out, but I do think it would be a case of getting the money for Isidore now and using that towards getting a right winger. Now, obviously, look, do I want Mark Gahey back? I'd like someone a bit better, but at the same time, Gahey has not had much game time at Chelsea, I don't believe. He can only play for them or us this season. So to me, it would make sense if you're going to sell Isidore. But do I think he'll go? No. I think we'll end up keeping him. And I would like him to stay as well, really. But if you got that sort of money, 20 or 25 million, I'd really have a proper think about selling him, because as John said there, I love Isidore, but he's been terrible since Chelsea away, if we're being honest. Yeah, it's a weird one. I think obviously Isidore hasn't had many chances to play games apart from like Liverpool, Man City away, and obviously he missed big chances in both games, didn't he? But at the same time, Isidore is only 25. John says his stock will increase, not even in his prime. And Richard says, yeah, Isidore. I think I think as well, I mean, obviously, you've got to remember as well, even if we sold him for, say, 15 to 20 million, we've made a considerable profit on him, haven't we? Because we signed him for, what was it, 3.5 million pretty much? And when we exercised the permanent clause, permanent option in the loan deal last season with Zenit St. Petersburg. So, yes, I think if we sold him, then depending on what happens with that, I wouldn't be against the idea. But it sounds very harsh saying it, but I don't think he'll go. I think obviously his partner's just had a child. They've both had a kid together very recently. I think it was at the start of the season that their child was their daughter was born. And I think they're going to be. I think they're settled here. I think they want to. I think they'll want. I think he'll want to stay here, which is fair enough. By the way, I want Isidore to stay. I love him, but yeah, I do agree with John. And Isidore for me seems to go through patches where patches of scoring goals, then patches of not scoring, then patches of scoring again, and then patches. So they come in bursts, don't they? And that's what I've kind of noticed, really. And don't get me wrong, to be fair to Isidore, the Premier League is much faster, it's much more athletic, it's much more intense. You get a lot less time as a forward on the ball because the defenders are much better. So, but yes, I do agree with Paul actually, though. He won't leave. He is settled here. No, I completely agree. And I'd like Isidore to stay. I'm perfectly happy with Broby Mayendo and Isidore for the rest of the season because I think, to be fair to Isidore, part of the problem, as I said earlier with Broby, is they're not getting the service as much as because I'd love to see what will happen if they do get a lot of service. What I would say though is, to be fair, Isidore has had big chances again, particularly away at Liverpool and away at Man City, but particularly the Liverpool one when it was a chance to win the game, and he ended up fluffing his lines, didn't he? Well, that's a bit harsh, but he ended up, you know what I mean. He didn't take advantage of the chance presented. What about Ward Prowse? Maybe a loan. Well, Burnley are looking at him on loan, aren't they? Maybe as a loan deal for the rest of the season, I wouldn't be complaining. When I say midfielder, I'm more Mina Xhaka type midfielder more than anything. But obviously, because Diarra's just come back, hasn't he, from AFCON? So, and I thought Diarra, okay, maybe it's easy because West Ham took their foot off the gas, but I still thought Diarra looked quite good at the weekend when he came on. So, and I think Diarra will be someone who will be a massive engine going forward and trying to drive us up the pitch. But yes, I do take your point though. Ward Prowse, I certainly wouldn't be against as an option for the rest of the, if it's like a loan option for the rest of the season. Let's see. F Ward Prowse, he's terrible. I think terrible's quite harsh, mate, if I'm honest. But I think we could get better. Going to be class to see a Leeds meltdown when Forest and West Ham find their feet. Well, everyone knows my thoughts about how I want that. A lot of Leeds fans have really annoyed me this season. Not all of them, by the way. My good friend Carl Levy at the Levy and Horn Total Football podcast. Carl's been class. He's a really class mate of mine. There's been a couple of Leeds fans. Conor McGilligan's been really good about Sunderland. A couple of Leeds fans I spoke to online have been sound people. And I know every fan base has its idiots, but the Leeds ones have been particularly noticeable this season. But I'll wait and see. Leeds have still got a game in hand over Forest and West Ham tonight, so let's see how they get on at Everton. What I would say if I was Leeds is what could decide it for them is this week in the window, because West Ham and Forest, I believe, might have bigger strength to recruit in terms of PSR headway and more money at their disposal to be able to spend. But I will give Leeds this: if they get Strand Larson, I'm not convinced they will, but if they get Strand Larson, that's a huge signing. I know he's not been good for Wolves, but however, look at the state of Wolves' squad this season. I think Strand Larson would do really well at Leeds if they signed him. So I think I'll wait and see and see what happens. But what I would say is, look at Forest and West Ham squads. It's not like, I don't think either squad's that poor. And I do to some degree I would feel for Leeds if they are going to have. Leeds need to keep up a certain level to finish above West Ham and Forest. And they don't need to finish above both of them. They just need to finish above one of them, don't they? But I do get the impression Nuno and West Ham will click at some point. But I've said that all season, and they're still in the bottom three, I suppose. I still struggle to see Forest going down with Dyche. I really do. That was a massive win for them yesterday away at Brentford. But yeah, so wait and see. I still think it's going to be the bottom five will be the bottom five at the end of the season. I think Wolves and Burnley are gone. I think they've got to. Even if Burnley beat us, I'm still standing by that. Burnley are gone. They've got too much to do. Unless they go on a mental mad run, which you never know. They've stuck with Scott Parker for now, so who knows what's going to happen there. But I do think the bottom five will be the bottom five, and I think it's going to be between Leeds, Forest, and West Ham for that last spot, but we'll see how that pans out. There's still a week left of the window. The win, by the way, everything I've just said is subject to what happens in the window. Then this next week in the window could change everything. So we'll wait and see how that pans out. Conor McGilligan is class on Sunderland. He said he has a soft spot for us. Yeah, well, I think he's got family members that are Sunderland fans. I might have paraphrased there, but I think that's what because he follows us on Instagram, I think. So we were just kind of having doing a couple of well, he was giving us a voice note on Saturday. He actually said the one game we need you and you've bottled it, which I get it from a Leeds persuasion. Of course, he'd want Sunderland to beat West Ham, but another thing as well, Leeds are effectively 6 points clear of West Ham because their goal difference is significantly better. So we shall see. But I think this week could determine quite a lot. What I would say is, to link it back to Sunderland, if Xhaka is obviously with Xhaka, basically for those who don't know, Xhaka is going to miss Burnley. That's pretty much a given at this point. And they need a fortnight to assess to see how his ankle injury heals before they assess how long he needs to be out for, if he does it now. But what I would say is, if he's out for a while, thank God we've got 33 points, because then we just need another 7 to absolutely make certain, for me, that we don't go down. Can't see Leeds slipping up now. I'll wait and see, Brett, because I think West Ham and Forest I can see getting better. But at the same time, to be fair to Leeds, they've only lost one of their last 8 or 9. So, yeah, I can see why you say that. West Ham play Leeds last game of the season. Yeah, imagine if that was a relegation 6-pointer on the final day. That would be something. But look, I think the bottom line is, look, we're on 33 points already at the minute. I still stand by, even though I did say on midweek Mackems last week, is top 10 the minimum we need to be looking at now? But I kind of asked that to ask the question, really. I think, personally, there is a great chance for us to get a top half finish. But at the same time, if we get to 40 points as quick as possible, and then we can really start to look ahead for the rest of the season. The good thing is now, we are probably a good 10, 15 points clear of further ahead of where I thought we might be at this stage at the start of the season. So, and I think you've got to give us credit for how well we have adapted. Yes, Connor is always very complimentary about us. Seems a canny lad. Yeah, he is. He knows that the only thing I disagree with him on is when he says Leeds are bigger than us. That's literally the only thing we disagree on. But apart from that, I think more times than not we tend to agree on pretty much a lot of things to do with Sunderland. And more times than not, I find myself agreeing with what he says. And even the things I disagree with him on, I can see his point of view behind it. So, Connor's a good lad. Connor seems a good lad anyway. Funny enough, my family, my aunt and my 2 cousins, who I often stay with in around November, because my 2 cousins' birthdays around then. That's why I'm often not at games in the start of November if we are having a home game there. That's why I wasn't at the Arsenal game. That's why I wasn't at the Coventry game the year before, the Birmingham game the year before that. I do think, but anyway, the point is, I've seen him walk around in that sort of area, and it'd be quite good to maybe meet up with him and do content should he want to. If he doesn't want to, then fair enough. Wouldn't blame him in the slightest. John Parr says, I'd take 9th to 10th now. To be honest, after that performance and some of that injury was, I'd be buzzing with top half, mate. I've said that even before West Ham, I'd be buzzing with the top half finish. I said before the season started, I'd be very happy with just getting 17th place. But, I think, and don't get us wrong, 17th is still on the surface level of success, but it would be a disappointment if we finish that low now. But again, you don't know. We're only 8 points clear of Leeds and Forest, so, that gap can be caught. I don't think either of them will, but it can be caught. So it's not impossible that it happens. But look, I guess the bottom line is we'll start to end this in the next 10, 15 minutes or so. But I think the bottom line for me is this week is going to be... I'm still quite relaxed. Now, I don't know if that's me being delusionally optimistic or anything, but I'm still quite chilled at the moment. I'm still quite... And I'm chilled, to be honest, even if we don't get what we want to get done this month. I trust Gazolfi and I trust Speakman. And I do think I'm going to be reasonably relaxed. And because of the start of the season we've had, and because of the fact we only need another 7 points to get to 40, I'm reasonably relaxed about the situation. And I think that if by the way, if say for example there's a winger that we want, but he's not available till the summer for a better price, I'm more than happy to ride out the rest of the season and happy to see how, as long as we comfortably stay up, which I do think we will. But I think as long as that happens, I'm comfortable enough and content enough to sort of ride out the rest of the season and then see what happens in the summer. And I will say this, mind, in the summer, providing obviously we play our cards right and our recruitment proves to be up to scratch still, I would be very excited for the summer to see who we bring in. Now, does that mean I'll be happy not getting anyone in this window? No, because, well, okay, someone for the here and now for the first team. We did get Tabby, didn't we? But I wouldn't be surprised this week if we did sign players. It'll be more players thinking, can be a squad player now, but will be a starter longer term. I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of went down that route for this window. But right now, if we didn't get anyone in for the first team as the here and now, I'd be reasonably quite relaxed and chilled out about it. But hopefully, we get someone class this week. If we don't, so be it. When is Traore back? That is a good question. I believe a few weeks ago it said it was something like 4 to 6 weeks. Please, someone correct me. I have a feeling I might be wrong there, but I think it's 4 to 6 weeks. Brett says, "Do you not think we should start playing three at the back using wing backs instead of wingers?" I can see your argument for that actually, because I think our wingers are probably arguably our weak point this season. The thing with wing backs is because then it means you're having, because what would you have to play as a back three? You'd then probably have to play Hume and Reynildo wing backs, which I think Hume could do that job actually. And then say if you had Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, that's a deadly back three. That sounds weird to say that, but you know what I mean. I think that's a very, very competent back three in the Premier League. Who would you play in the middle though? The thing is, if you're going to do that though, then it means you're going to have to play, unless you had a 3-5-2 maybe, and then you had like Xhaka, Sadiki, Diarra, and whatnot. But then you're going to have two forwards, aren't you? It just depends. You have to switch things around for the. You have to switch things around really for formations. But it's a fair question to ask. Fair play, Brett. That actually did get me thinking there. John says, if West Ham take 40 million for Paqueta and invest that at the end of the window, they don't go down surely. John, to be honest, I still have a good feeling West Ham will stay up. I don't know what it is. Like, look at the squad they've got. Like, if you've got Matias Fernandez, who's really starting to improve in Paqueta's absence, obviously they've just spent about 50 million quid on the forward line. They've obviously got Callum Wilson coming off the bench, who we know, despite his connections with a certain previous club, he is not a bad striker at Premier League level if you keep him fit. You've got Bowen and Somerville. I really rate both of them as wingers. Souček's really good in the middle for them. Wan-Bissaka's really good for them. I think the only thing for West Ham is defensively they need to be better, because even then Sunderland still created, even when Sunderland were off par, we still created a couple of really good chances against them. That's the only thing I would really sort of say there. But if West Ham are going to stay up, they have to make this 2-game winning run build for something and count for something. In fairness to them, they are away at Chelsea on. Oh, hang on. Sorry about that noise. No, they are away at Chelsea on Saturday, and I don't expect them to get anything there really. But they've got Burnley away the week after that, I think, and those are the type of games they have to be winning if they're wanting to stay up. But I do agree with you. I think if Paqueta goes, I can only see West Ham investing that because they know they need to stay up. And I think West Ham remind me in some ways the way they've been ran in recent years. You know what? Although with the way they've been ran in recent years, they kind of remind me of Sunderland towards the back end of the short era in the Premier League, where they were basically dependent on financially on staying in the Premier League. So really, West Ham can't afford to go down. And I think, although Forest, I think, would be in better shape if they went down, I just don't see them going down under Dyche. I think their squad's too good. Good plan, 3 at the back. I do think we will utilize. I don't think we'll utilize that at home to Burnley, but I think away at Arsenal we'll go, and maybe even at home to Liverpool, for example. I could see us going 3 at the back. Bournemouth away, even to a lesser extent, because Bournemouth aren't a bad team either. This is what I mean. Even the non-traditional Big Six clubs, even the clubs that are down the bottom end of the table, like bottom half, the quality's still good, and that's the freakish thing about the Premier League. The Premier League's got to a level now where even the teams that are deemed "quote unquote" the weakest are still stacked full of quality, and that's why and when I look at it that way, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, no wonder promoted clubs over the last few years have struggled. When you know every player on West Ham's team, you know they have a good team. Well, John, put it the way, I'm never going to pretend to know every player on their side. I don't actually know a lot of what their defense is. Areola, I know apparently has been a bit questionable in goal for them, but I do get the impression that you look at what they've got going forward, they should be having enough to win enough games to stay up. I mean, but again, what you see, was it Paul who said this earlier? Yeah, Paul was saying this earlier. Like West Ham play Leeds last game of the season, and that's what I mean. So that's going to be a huge factor there. But I just think when you look at even when you look at Forest, Elliot Anderson, Morgan Gibbs-White, Damondoy, I think it is, Amari Hutchinson, who doesn't even start for them, Igor Jesus up top, Chris Wood's still there. Do you know what I mean? Like, those are squads that are like 17th and 18th at the moment. Goodness me. So this is where I think a part of me still has a suspicion Leeds might go down, just because I think the quality of and it's not because Leeds have done terribly, they've done really, really well. And there's players they've got I like Stack in midfield, I think he's really good for them. Nemecha, Calvert-Lewin, I like both as forwards. Okafor's done really good. Julian Bogle's been really good for them this season. But the problem they'll have is that, and Conor McGilligan even himself has said this across the season, when you look at the squad West Ham have got, and you look at the squad Forest have got, and look, even I'll tell you one team who I would be concerned potentially, mind, Palace. Palace is a team that, and I don't think Palace will go down. I think they'll have too much, but you can't rule it out. Like, Palace are in absolute free fall at the minute. Okay, they lost to Chelsea, and I think even if Chelsea aren't the most convincing, I would expect Chelsea. You would expect Chelsea to beat Palace 9 times out of 10. But I think Palace would have reason to. If there's any team I'd be worried about, it is Crystal Palace. But it all depends what happens with Mateta, and it depends what they do in the rest of the window. If Glasner stay until the end of the season, then you'd think that they'll think maybe they'll have enough to stop up. They need probably another 12 points, but it's going to be a fascinating one. The main thing we have to do is to make sure we are well clear, well clear of any battle at the bottom, and I think we will be by the end of the season. As long as Xhaka's not out for too long. But then there's another factor. At some point, Sunderland have to get used to the fact that Granit Xhaka will not be playing every week because he's 33 years old, and while he's very good, and I think he has another couple of seasons of top flight level football in him, eventually he will be on the decline and he will not be able to start games in the Prem anymore. That's not his fault. That's age. That happens to footballers. That catches up with them. So eventually, we have to get to a point where we're not going to be just the Granit Xhaka team. And I don't think we are that now, by the way. I think that's unfair on Sunderland to suggest or imply that. But I do think we need to be able to have a plan without him. But Saturday was probably a good example of what not to do without Xhaka, and the fact that we probably don't have the squad to play that system, that we don't have the squad to play that system and play an attacking formation without Xhaka sort of controlling things from the middle of the park. Paul says we need to adapt without we need to adapt without Xhaka fast. Won't be here forever. Absolutely, mate. I could see Xhaka spending the last few years of his career here as long as we're still in the Premier League. But yeah, eventually at some point, we have to accept that he won't be here forever, and at some point he'll retire or he'll go into the coaching role or whatever it is. But I think you'll know. I do agree with what Paul said. I'll just get it up again. We need to adapt without Xhaka fast. And I agree. We do. We absolutely need to adapt without him. But for now, we're still in a good position. So we'll wait and see. I think I'll give another couple of minutes and then I will head off. But thanks to everyone who has watched, especially when I keep doing these at short notice. We've got 34 people as of right now watching. Watch that probably go down to like 20. But either way, I think it's appreciated the fact that people do seem to want to watch me talk and basically talk to a camera for about probably 45 to 50 minutes. But I figured more people have said that they apparently want me to start doing a bit more of these. So maybe I'll do one once or twice a week and we'll just go through kind of Conor McGilligan style, just nowhere near as technically edited or fancy. But maybe have a video where let's just read comments and just engage with the audience, basically. Because I think these things are quite good. And it was a good therapy session to sort of vocalize how Saturday went wrong and and what I will say to Sunderland is we generally tend to bounce back whenever we lose a game in the Premier League. So let's hope that continues with Burnley. And then obviously after that, you've got the easy task of Arsenal away and then Liverpool at home. And obviously Arsenal have just lost to Man United, but bear in mind Man United have got far better attacking power than we have. But you don't know. You just do not know, do you? Let's see. Who will be the most valuable player come the end of the season? I'm guessing if you mean in terms of finances, Siddiqui, maybe Broby to an extent if he gets to take double figures this season. Diarra if he has a blistering second half of the season. Roofs, I think Roofs is right up there. I don't know. That's a good question. See what the chat thinks about that. Kieran says if Broby had Isidore's pace, do you know what? Not Isidore's pace necessarily. Mayenda's. If Broby had Mayenda's pace, but then lies the problem. He probably wouldn't be playing for us, would he? But it's a fair point. Like I said to you though, Broby was spent 20 million quid on, and good forwards in the Premier League these days cost about probably 60, 70 million quid, maybe even more. Even if you look at, take out the fact that obviously you're talking about the Mags for a second, but look at Voltemada. Now, ignore the fact he had a cracking header against us. Put it this way, even though obviously he scored a cracking header for us against Newcastle when he plays for them, which is still really, really funny, but even despite that, I like Voltemada. When I've watched him play for Newcastle, I've actually been generally quite impressed with him. But even he but he's not quite as good. He's not the same player as Isak, but he's not as good, if you know what I mean. And even he still costs 65 million quid. That again, that's how ridiculously stupid and effing inflated this Premier League season is. And the Premier League in general has become that. Good players tend to cost a shit ton of money. Yeah, I'm just going to have Swan, but screw it. And that's why I think Sunderland will continue to use the foreign market. I was going off it when Arsenal lost. Shoved. No, don't get me wrong. I think when people kept saying, "Oh, Arsenal and Sunderland are the only two teams left with an unbeaten home record," I was like, "Yep, I'd like Arsenal to lose a home game so we can actually be the only team left with that record." And look, at some point we will lose. But who would have thought that at the start of the season that we will now be the last team that has an unbeaten home record? in the Premier League by the end of January. Obviously, how long that lasts, we don't know. But it is interesting, isn't it? And actually, when you look at it again, we've played Villa. I know, obviously, look, when we played Villa, I do believe, obviously, look, Villa were on a poor run of form, but we were down to 10 men. Obviously, you played Arsenal at home, you played Man City at home. So we haven't played, and obviously, look, take out the fact Newcastle lost to us and they were poor on the day. Newcastle are not a bad team. We've played them at home. So we've played some decent sides at home in general, I would say. Even Leeds, for example, when they played against us, they were all right. Need a draw tonight so Everton only move level on points and not more, and Leeds don't move within 5 points. I'd rather Everton win, but everyone knows why. But yeah, look, we'll see. Right, guys, I think I am going to leave it there. Thanks to everyone who has watched. It's been very much appreciated. Maybe I might do one of these later in the week. I don't know. Maybe if something big happens in the window, or if any big stories break, or however else it comes about. But no, if there's any quick last comments, quickly get them in now before I head off, because I'll head off in about a minute or so. But no, thanks to everyone who does watch. It honestly does mean a lot that people seem to like watching us and have stuck with watching me, considering I've been waffling along for about 50 minutes or so. But look, Saturday was disappointing, and we should be able to criticise it, but we'll remember the bigger perspective. We will be all right this season, I think. But yeah, take care, you lovely lot. And yeah, I am going to head off right now. So yeah, unless I see you later in the week for a signing or something big happening and I'll do a stream maybe. If not, I will see you next Monday for Burnley, where hopefully, fingers crossed, we bounce back by beating Burnley at the Stadium of Light. How are the lads?